Hello, everyone. This is the 151st episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog, and I am joined by Paul from Shipley in England and the 1888 Letter blog. For this episode, we interview English author Mr. Greg Lansdowne discussing his new book, Panini Legends, a celebration of the world's greatest football stickers. Mr. Lansdowne is the author of Stuck on You, The Rise and Fall, and Rise of Panini Stickers, as well as Panini Football Stickers, The Official Celebration, A Nostalgic Journey Through the World of Panini, as well as Living a Fan's Adventure Tale. Stuck on You, The Rise and Fall, and The Rise of Panini Stickers was made into an ITV documentary. Hello, Greg. Welcome back.
Hello, thanks a lot for having me on. Yeah, there's a lot of football sticker stuff in there, isn't there?
For sure. Well, you are well known for your Panini books. Can you explain how you decided on this new book that chronicles the Panini pictures of the many of the legends of the game?
Some people might think, oh, not another book about Panini stickers, but my argument always is, well, Panini stickers have been or started out with cards, but the company has been going for more than 60 years now and in a multitude of countries. So if you think about all the stickers that they produced over the years and all the stickers that the majority of people haven't seen in each country. So if you grew up in the UK in the 80s, then yeah, then you probably see most of the Panini stickers from their golden era of 78 to 93. And if you grew up in Spain, then obviously you're well aware of all the collections there. But vice versa, you wouldn't have seen the Italian ones, or you wouldn't have seen a lot of the German ones. And so, whereas the 60th anniversary one was mainly UK release based stickers. This one mines from a lot wider base of Panini stickers. So the Panini Legends 85 players covers players from all around the world. And they didn't all play in the UK, they didn't all play in Italy, and they played in various countries. So as a result, we've got lots of stickers from the Calciatore albums, from the Spanish albums, the French albums, the German albums, and the English and various countries as well. I mean, there's quite a few Dutch players in there, so that again, there will be early stickers of great Dutch players that maybe might not be familiar to people, and I think that's what makes this book particularly interesting. That it does cover a lot of different albums and a lot of different approaches that Panini took to designing stickers.
And Greg, what was the research process like as you compiled a list of every selected player's appearance in Panini albums, both club and international tournaments?
It was argumentative, the research process. If you have to draw up a list of 85 players and you're not the only one doing it, then obviously if you gave it anybody the chance to name 85 players who they think should be Panini Legends, obviously everyone will come up with different names. So I came up with a long list of 120, 125. And then from there, it was whittled down by other people, really. So my Bloomsbury editor and Panini also had their input. There is a Panini France edition translation, which is coming out, and they had a few selections. There is potentially a Spanish one, and if that happens, then they've had a few selections as well. So as I say, there's a multitude of people getting involved, and from my long list, there were probably some players who were on the cusp, and there are other players, in my opinion, who should definitely have been in there, but they didn't make it. But maybe other people agree with the people who decided they lost out, and also another way that people got cut was on the basis of how many Panini stickers they had. So, for example, some of the women's players that were on the long list didn't make it in because they just didn't have enough stickers, and there's not a lot you can do about that. So, Panini only started producing women's football stickers in 2011. So, for any women's player who finished before then, they had no chance of being in. And then any player who finished around 2011 also had no chance of coming in, because you can't have a double page spread with a 2011 Women's World Cup and a Euro 2015 or Euro 2017, sorry, and then that's your lot. And also Panini didn't necessarily always have the stickers. So that was another criteria. So then we came to this final 85, and yeah, so I think I compare it to when bands make albums. Every member of the band, when they listen to the album again, there's certain parts they're not happy with, probably the parts that they didn't do. And I am happy with it, but I also think, oh, it's a shame that this person didn't go in, or it's a shame this sticker didn't come in. But there's reasons for pretty much everything, and this is why in the book I write a 2-page article about the selection criteria, because it's obvious that people will keep saying to me, well, why isn't this person in? Why isn't this person in? And that's my response.
Nostalgics of the game will definitely enjoy this compilation. What would you like the younger readers to take away from this book?
Well, there are current players in there for a start, and I did see a comment on social media from someone in Spain complaining that Mbappe isn't a legend, and only players who retired should be considered legends. And I see that point. I also don't see the point of anybody saying that Mbappe is not a legend, because I'm sorry, if you score a hat trick in a World Cup final and win the World Cup as a teenager, I don't really know what more you need to do to be a legend. And obviously, if we don't do this book again, then Mbappe wouldn't have had the chance to be in it when he's retired. So yeah, I mean, as I say, I think that is probably what I take away from the book, is that we wanted to cover as many players as possible and as wide an era as possible. So for people who grew up in the 60s, we've got people like Beckenbauer and Best and Pele. And for people who grew up now, you've got Mbappe and Harry Kane and Erling Haaland and people like that. And youngsters are collecting still. The Premier League sticker album comes out, I think, a week before Christmas. The WSL album, sticker album, has just come out, and loads of kids are collecting those. And the same goes for the albums coming out in Spain and Italy, and they're also collecting the cards. So I don't think, obviously, Panini and Topps and all the other companies are very mindful that you have to keep kids involved, and I think they are doing a good job of that at the moment, because there's something for the kids on the lower scales, and there's also the premium range for the adults.
There were some album titles that we were unfamiliar with. Were they all under the umbrella of Panini, or did you include any photos in there that aren't affiliated?
No, everything is Panini. It might not necessarily have been Panini at the time. So, for instance, Colecciones Este from Spain. So, for a long time, they were actually a rival of Panini, but they've now been bought in the early 2000s by Panini. So, in effect, we had 2 albums to choose from Maradona's time at Barcelona, for example. So we could use both the Este ones and the Panini albums that were coming out at the same time. There were also, although there's no images of top sellers, the UK albums, but they are listed in the checklists for players. So someone like Ray Wilkins had a top sellers Football 76 sticker. It's not in there, but it's in the checklist. So Panini weren't allowed to produce UK albums up until Football 78 because of EU issues. So what they did is they produced the stickers for a London company called Top Sellers. So it was, all intents and purposes, a Panini album, but it was they were dipping their toe in the water just to see how successful. And then finally in 78 they went for it themselves. Or actually they did a Euro football album in 77. That was their first proper foray under the Panini umbrella.
You already touched up on this, but naturally you could not have every single player on this album. Can you discuss further on how you decided on narrowing down the list of the chosen players?
As the book was being put together, it became apparent that sometimes there was a bit of repetition. We listed 120 legends of the game, and certainly from the men's perspective, if we listed 100 men, probably 50 of them played for either Barcelona or Real Madrid. So the amount of Barcelona kits and Real Madrid kits in the book was getting a bit repetitive. So there are some great players who played for one or other of those teams who didn't make it. There are also lots of Brazilians in there, rightly so. But as a result, someone like Zico didn't make it because just nothing against him, but it's just there were just so many Brazilians that we felt obliged, and rightly so, just to cover more teams. And I think as a result, that's what makes it more interesting. And again, when I wrote the piece explaining why some players made it and some players didn't make it, Panini didn't have the rights for the Premier League for many years. So they did their Football 93 album, and then Merlin got the Premier League rights for the following album, and then they kept it until 2019. So as a result, all the leading players playing in England between that period, it was difficult to get them in because they had a few international stickers, but they didn't have the breadth of stickers that really cover their whole career. So someone like Alan Shearer, you would have thought, well, yes, he'd definitely make it, and he does have some stickers, but it just doesn't cover the full breadth of his career because there's no long run of Blackburn stickers and Newcastle stickers. We've just got the early Southampton and the first Blackburn, and that's it. And even his England stickers, he didn't have a World Cup sticker. He was in France 98, but he didn't have a Panini sticker. So as I say, that's another example of a player who many would expect to see in, but it just didn't make sense as we were going through the process.
You've given us an insight into the selection process, which was obviously
I would say that probably took as long as the actual writing of the book, although not as long as I perhaps foolishly said when we were going through how the book would look. I think it would be a good idea to make a checklist of every sticker that these players have. Without having done it, I think you can imagine how much time, and not just listing the albums. I decided, and I'm also going to put the number of each sticker in there as well. And then we discovered the naming of each album didn't stick to any uniformity. So one year the album would be football, just not no particular country, but it might be football 91. Then it might be football 1992. Then it would be football '93. So I couldn't even guess. I had to literally check every single album every time I did a sticker just to make sure that I've got the apostrophes in the right place, or is it uppercase, is it lowercase? And as I say, a lot of the time it didn't even make sense because it changed completely from year to year. So doing that was probably the biggest nightmare out of the whole process. And then you've got to choose what stickers go in because obviously players have dozens. Well, we didn't get every single sticker of every player, but if we're given 25, 30 stickers of a player and we've only got a double page spread to get 6 or 7 in, then how do we go about that? And it wasn't always about, well, we've got to get this sticker in because he did that then, or she did that then. A lot of the time it's about, well, the text is here, the checklist is here. This is the space we've got to work around. And obviously the stickers are different shape. So that was mainly left to the designer. Sometimes I say, oh, can we have this and can we have that? And well, unfortunately, we can't because that sticker doesn't fit there. So there was a big note. I'd say it's a lot easier, for example, for me to write Stuck on You because it's just page of text after text after text, and then you've got an 8-page picture plate. That's easy by comparison.
And as you've indicated, there are obviously some players that were difficult decisions. Were there any particular ones that you really struggled with that you were hanging on to until the end and were cut, or were you able to get most of the players that you really wanted in there?
Well, my favourite player is Tony Adams, so I did want him in, and I did at least insist that he made the honourable mentions. I did think it was a shame that Zico didn't make it in, but unfortunately there were just too many Brazilians, and he was one of the ones who had to go. Neville Southall, Pat Jennings, great goalkeepers. It would have been nice to put them in, and I think it was a case of we've got quite a few from the 80s UK album era. So again, unfortunately, they had to go, and players from the Merlin era like Steven Gerrard and Paul Scholes and Rio Ferdinand, although they obviously would have made a long list, they just didn't make the short list because they're Merlin players, really, in effect. So, yeah, I mean, Sam Kerr in the women's section, there was a longer list of women's players, but they just didn't have the stickers. So someone like Sam Kerr, it would have been nice to have had her in. And I would have liked Kelly Smith in as probably the UK's greatest ever player, but she's never had a Panini sticker. So there's not even one. So there's not a great deal I can do about that.
Do you anticipate fans attacking your choices for not including their player?
Oh yeah. Well, in that piece in the book, I say that if I have a sticker for every time someone's going to say to me, "Why is this player not in it?" I will have enough to fill an album or fill several albums, I'm sure. But that's a good thing. It means that people are reading the book and they care. If I asked you to list your 85 players who should have been in the book, it wouldn't be the same 85. But as I say, a lot of the time, the reason why people are not in is because there weren't the stickers, or that it was just overload of certain teams and certain countries. So it wasn't that they were deemed not good enough. It was just that to make an interesting book, we had to go for different choices and different kit colours. And for me, the most interesting pages in this book are of the players who played for a multitude of clubs and also in different countries. So people like Trevor Francis and Ray Wilkins, they're my favourite spreads because they're in all different kits in every sticker. Liam Brady as well. We've got stickers from all of his clubs in Italy. So there's only one. Most people associate Liam Brady with Arsenal, or certainly a lot of people. But there's only one Arsenal sticker, and the majority are of his days in Serie A. And that, for people in the UK, that's going to be something different.
You already mentioned that for the selected players, obviously, you also had to whittle down to which specific Panini photograph you would use. Again, that was more your input, or was there, like I said, was there more input from Panini or other parties involved? How did that work out?
For a start, it was the decisions as to what stickers we used were based on what stickers we got from Panini. So we can only go with what we get from them. And you can imagine, I compiled checklists of every single sticker. And some of these players run to hundreds. So we're not going to give a checklist of 120 stickers to Panini to come back with for one player, because you can imagine how long that's going to take going for the archive. So I had to then whittle that down to 20, 30 stickers. And then hopefully we would get at least 15, 20 to work with. Sometimes we got more, but I think the minimum really we wanted to work with, or if possible, was 15 to 20. And hopefully within those, they'd be the key stickers. And then from there, a lot of the time, it would be the designer who made the decision in terms of which ones we went with, because it needed to fit around the text that I'd written and the size of the checklist. So some players had really long checklists which covered a lot of their pages. So Maradona, some of the players are selected checklists because we just couldn't get. I had compiled them all, but there just wasn't the room to list every single sticker in. So we just had to say that they're all selected checklists. So not every single sticker of player is in there. And I'm sure I missed out plenty anyway, because there's just so many albums that are being discovered, and Panini are taking over companies a lot of the time as well. So 1 year ago, they might not have been a Panini sticker, and now historically it is because they've taken over the company. So yeah, a lot of the time we had to base it around the page, and there was also licensing issues. So depending on whether Panini had the license at the moment, we couldn't use as many Champions League stickers because they're not doing that. So we could use some, but we couldn't use others. And so basically, every page was put together with a multitude of reasons why we had to, well, we couldn't do this or why we couldn't do that, but we could do that.
There are also legends like Pele, perhaps Beckenbauer, at least as a player, who were part of the pre-Panini explosion era. How do their photographs, and probably more often cards than stickers, how do they compare to the more modern era?
We were lucky that, although in the first decade of Italy, there were only Italian release albums, but fortunately, they would have world star sections. And they would also have a multi-sports album towards the end of the 60s as well. So that meant that there were options for the likes of Beckenbauer and Pele and Best, Bobby Moore. And some of those, Pele in particular, has had a lot of recent stickers. He's even had his own album, and Maradona the same, or they've had special sections in albums. So that makes it a lot easier. And they appear as legends in World Cup albums as well now. But I do think it's more interesting to see the Pele stickers from the 60s, or the cards as they would have been at the very start. So thankfully they did put world star sections in early on, so we were able to get those 60s players. I mean, George Best, he's in there, but I think if there's probably about 4 or 5 stickers or cards in there, and I think that was all we were given because there just isn't a great deal. He had a couple of stickers in 80s albums, but as I say, we didn't have much to work with. But in my opinion, you can't not have George Best in there. That maybe people from outside the UK might not agree because they won't have been exposed to him as much. But I think if you read about him and just see his clips, there aren't many players with those, especially as most of the good stuff that he did on a football pitch was never captured on film. I think that the fact that there is so much on the basis of the era that he played in shows that he does, and I don't even know why I'm justifying him being in, but I'm sure there are some people from outside of England who also, or outside of the UK, who will want to know why he made it instead of such and such.
Then there are the players who also stood out as managers, and they have Panini stickers as players as well as managers. Now, these include the likes of Johan Cruyff, Guardiola, Deschamps, among others. I seem to remember that in older albums, the managers were not always included. Do you remember when this started to include the photo of the managers as well?
There's no consistency to that. So, for example, the managers don't appear in the Premier League albums now, and I think a lot of the reason is because managers get sacked so much, whereas at least players do tend to last until the January transfer window, and which is why Panini now do a transfer update, for example. But yeah, I would say managers are not as common now, and the reason will be that you don't get managers lasting for 10, 15 years. And but there even used to be a period where they appeared in Euro and World Cup albums briefly, which was a nice addition. But again, managers seem to get sacked just before tournaments happen these days as well. So they probably, whereas you can't generally sack a player, that they might get injured, but at least they had a chance of being in the squad. So Spain seems to be one of the countries who was the biggest on having managers or trainers in there, and so that's why we had a nice amount of Johan Cruyff and Pep Guardiola stickers available for when they were managing as well. And Johan Cruyff is one of the players who's got a 4-page spread, so we've got loads of manager stickers as well as player stickers. Then that's one of the things we on the long list. We also have managers to start with. And then we decided that it didn't make sense if there weren't player stickers as well. So someone like Arsene Wenger, for example, was in the list but didn't make it because we didn't have any player stickers. So Cruyff and Guardiola are there, would have been there on the basis that they're playing, even if they hadn't been managers, especially Cruyff. But there might be scope to do a manager's book in the future.
You touch up on this in the book, but what are the most sought after Panini stickers for a given player? And is that market changing over time?
Yeah, it's changed since COVID, and the North Americans are responsible for why it's just gone ridiculous now. So the most expensive sticker remains the Diego Maradona rookie Calciatore 7980, $555,000. But I don't think it will ever get to that height again. I think it was a case of there was a lack of knowledge at the time, and somebody bought it who didn't realise that there's quite a few out there. Not necessarily graded 10, but there are plenty out there. And I think as more came to the market, probably the person who paid for that realised that they might have bought over the odds. So a lot of early stickers of some of the great players were being purchased for very high amounts, and they still go for high amounts now, but probably not, in some instances, not as much as they were. But really, any early or tournament sticker for the likes of Pelé and Maradona, and then Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, they're the ones. And I think the fact that although Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi are still playing, the fact that their 2006 stickers will command a high price, even especially in good condition. And I mean, there's loads and loads of those stickers out there, and there's loads of boxes of Germany 2006 out there. But people would still pay a lot of money, especially if it was graded to 10 for these stickers. And to us, we'd have been doing that album and putting it in our swaps pile, and then giving up the Messi or the Cristiano Ronaldo because it's just another sticker. And in 2006, it was. Maybe you could have got 5 of someone else's swaps for it, but if you said to someone, "I'll give you, I want £50 for it," I would say, "No, it's just a sticker. I'll probably get it in the next packet."
Zooming out, why are these Panini albums at club and international level part of the culture of football fandom after so many decades? And do you think this fascination is increasing or decreasing?
It's increasing, and I think one of the reasons why it's increasing is because there's a lot of investors coming into the market or returning to the market now, because they know that there's a value to these cards and stickers that there wasn't before COVID. So a lot of people are reevaluating their collections, their loose stickers and cards in particular. And people are now getting, in North America, people have been getting their cards graded for decades. Now we're starting to do that because, as I say, there's no point having a sticker or card shoved in a box or put in the loft or the attic and never looked at, when if you got it graded, it might be worth thousands of pounds. In the UK and Europe, we weren't looking at our collections like that up until people from North America started bidding on these stickers. And so Paul Gascoigne Football 87 rookie that you could have got for a couple of pounds, all of a sudden people are bidding 20, 30, 40 pounds, and then they're grading the high ones and potentially getting hundreds, if not thousands for it. Then of course you've got to look at your collection and think, well, I'm not going to swap that one for one anymore, am I? Or I'm not going to sell it for a couple of pounds, because the person buying it clearly is not buying it to put in their album or for their collection. A lot of the time they're looking to then get it graded and sell it themselves. So cut out the middleman, and I might as well make some money out of it. I think that's the approach that a lot of people are looking at it now. I mean, there are also lots of people just collecting, and the range of cards and stickers available to people now, you can, if you really wanted to, you could start a different collection every week now, it seems. That wasn't the case when I was growing up. You had the domestic league album, every other year you'd have a Euro or World Cup album, and then you might have one special album early on in the season, and that was it.
How would you describe the evolution of the Panini albums over the decades, for better or worse?
They have always been the cream of the crop in terms of the information that they give out. So, for instance, when Merlin got the rights to the Premier League for the 93-94 album, they took from which was all the four people who started the business were involved with Panini during their heyday. So that's why. So that they knew how to do a good album. So then that was another company who knew how to do good albums, and I think and others have now looked at it and think, well, we want to compete. We've really got to do this right. Panini's Premier League album is now like a chronicle of that season. So it's not just the stickers, the amount of information in there you can look back at, and it's a mine for people. And even the first Premier League Panini album from 2019-20 has started to be a bit of nostalgia for that, really. And you look at the kits have changed and the players have changed, or the hairstyles of the current players from when they were starting out. And I think for me, there has never been, there's rarely a better way to look back at a season than a Panini sticker album. Bloomsbury and Panini, we did the first 60th anniversary book. But then we realised that there was an interest to this, and there's also an interest in the way that these stickers and albums are displayed. So we then did anthologies of the Football 78 to Football 85 album, and then the Football 86 to Football 93 album. And so all the pages, so 600-page books we're talking about. And they were very well received, and because you open those books up, and any season from 78 to 85, you look at the Panini album and it tells the story of the season. And they had lots of special sections in there. So they had a page for the 1980 FA Cup final the following year. So if you want to know about that season and the great players and a bit about them, then there's no better way to look back at it as far as I'm concerned.
It seems like nowadays there are online communities for kit nostalgia. Is there something comparable when it comes to Panini sticker albums?
Yeah, there's lots of swapping sites like Last Sticker and Sticker Swap, and just on social media, people will post pictures of their stickers or their albums, and then that will get a lot of debate. So social media has been a massive help in pushing the community and getting them together. Obviously, once you leave school, you have no school playground, so you've now got the cyber playground, and so you can swap with people all over the world for multiple collections. So again, when I was growing up, there were Italian and Spanish albums, but we had no access to them. Now we can buy the stickers and we can swap with people. We couldn't do that then. The internet has been a boon to these sticker companies, and Panini are very active on social media as well to push their products. If you want to know about stickers and cards, then there's plenty out there for you and plenty of people who you can interact with.
You've written about this previously, but what are your memories of your first Panini album, both at domestic level and international?
Yeah, well, it all started Football 79. My brother, who played for West Ham at the time, he got me into it because he collected the FKS albums during the 70s, and he bought, in those days, the traditional thing to do was get the copy of Shoot, which gave the Panini album free with a packet of stickers, and the following issue you get another couple of packets, and then you're off. I think I was a bit too young to be swapping in the playground, but he was obviously very generous with how many he bought, because I got within one, the St Mirren badge. So I've still got that album 45 years down the line. It's still missing a St Mirren badge, but it's a nice talking point. And whenever I see their scores, it reminds me of the Football 79 album. So I think most people remember their childhood days of collecting, and a lot of the time they remember certain players or badges that they either couldn't get or that they seemed to get in every packet. And then I was hooked. So the natural first international album from that was the Europa 80, which is now a very highly sought after album because there weren't many badges in the packet. So I'm only about 25 stickers short, but probably half of those are badges. And I know there are only 8 teams in the tournament, but they actually did best of the rest or nations that missed out. So they had 4 players and a badge. So I think there would have been at least 20, if not 24, national badges in there. And as I say, I'm missing about 12 of those. So it's a very difficult album to finish, and the stickers for that or the completed album goes for a lot of money now. So I don't think I'll ever finish that one.
To jog back your memory, a couple of years back, we discussed the evolution of football magazines. Similarly, do you think the older generations look more fondly to these Panini albums, while perhaps the new generations take them for granted as they've always been there and readily available to them?
I think the new generation, to an extent, are probably reliant on the older generation to tell them or to advise them that they should probably take care of their collections. But to be honest, what the difference is that when we were growing up, we didn't think that, we've got to keep these stickers in pristine condition. So our swaps piles, we put elastic bands around them and stuffed them in our pocket because we didn't realise that a lot of these stickers we've got loose are going to be worth hundreds of thousands of pounds in time to come. And to be honest, I think that's a good thing because I think it's, as a kid, you don't really want to feel like you've got to handle everything perfectly and stick it in perfectly. I think in your early albums, you just need to go for it and do it the way that you want to, because if you don't, then you'll probably lose interest because it stops being fun. So I think there needs to be albums packed with stickers that are not worth a lot. And I think one of the changes that makes that difficult is that you've now got parallel stickers, and so that the higher end or the rarer parallel stickers are, you don't want to stick in the album. You want to put them straight in a penny sleeve and potentially grade them, and that's obviously more for adults than kids. So I think the key here is that we need to maintain albums that are just fun. No stickers are ever going to be worth a great deal of money, so no need to worry. Just enjoy it. If you stick it wonkily, doesn't matter. Just enjoy the process of collecting and swapping, and then hope that you become a long-term collector.
As you were researching for this book, did you feel that the Panini albums, say for the World Cup of a certain era, were more memorable? Do you think that's directly related to how old you were when those tournaments took place?
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody thinks that their era was the best to grow up in. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I mean, I watched a lot of the big match revisited, and that was my era, and I enjoy watching the games. But it's clear that there's a lot of things from that time that haven't improved, or that have improved rather. Although, having said that, there was a lot of football hooliganism at the time during the 80s on these. And Brian Moore's always talking about the potential for trouble or the trouble that happened, but then I'm watching or seeing videos on social media of a fight at the West Ham Arsenal game yesterday. So maybe nothing has changed, or it's just dispersed to different areas. So, but no, the Spain 82 and Mexico 86 World Cup albums were my favourites of the World Cup, but just because they were my first ones, I would imagine. They're all great, the Panini World Cup albums, because they all tell a story of that World Cup, and there's few better ways to look back on a tournament than flicking through the World Cup album and sometimes see who got missed out. Toto Schillaci didn't make the Italia 90 album, for example, because he only came into the squad very, very late. And there's lots of examples like that, and that's interesting too.
In closing, what is the future of Panini sticker albums? Is it a staple of football culture for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, they have to pivot like most companies, and if you lose a license, then obviously you've got to look for other licenses. So this is their final Premier League sticker album this season, certainly for a while, because they've lost that. But they've just released their second WSL album. That was very successful last season. I'm sure it'll be successful this season. At some point, no doubt they'll look to extend to cards for the WSL as well. They've still got various European leagues, a lot of the big ones like Spain and Italy and France. They've still got the World Cup. So they've got plenty going on. And there's lots of different ways that you can innovate now as well. As I say, when I was collecting, you had the sticker album and you had a tournament album every 2 years, and that was your lot. Whereas you could collect different Panini sticker and card collections pretty much every week of the year if you wanted to this year. So there's plenty out there, and there's plenty going on for Panini. So I don't think anyone needs to worry that we're not going to have Panini stickers in the near future. And no doubt the next World Cup album will be a big one because it's in North America, and that really is the home of particularly the card hobby. So there'll be all sorts of stuff available. And, the fact that Panini are doing those collections means that their name is going to be synonymous with that World Cup again.
With that, I would like to thank you for your participation in this interview. All our respective contact information and the link to Mr. Lansdowne's books are on the blog and podcast uploads, and this is the new book. Greg, thank you once again, and hope to continue these discussions on football history.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's always enjoyable to relive those Panini albums.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more to come.
We look forward. Thank you.